On July the 22nd, 2011, the peaceful illusion of Norway was broken. 77 people were brutally taken from what, to the outside world, seemed like a harmonious country, but underneath had a growing hatred building. Norway was a perfect country alongside Sweden to many progressives everywhere in the world. Most of the casualties were from the Labour Youth Party, but anyone who was involved in Youth Party politics at some point in their lives felt empathetic with them. And I was one of them because I was actually a member of the Young Conservative Party when I was younger. And something like this wasn't supposed to happen. At least not in Norway. At least that's what I used to think. So, what led up to it? What caused it? How could kids at a summer camp and regular government officials deserve this in any way? These questions kept on spinning through my head for days, weeks, months, and they even spin around in my head today. To try and understand something like this is very human. We need to have something happen for a reason. There needs to be a pattern. The reaction from the Norwegian public after the attacks were laudable. People marched in solidarity, and promises of more democracy were given by the Prime Minister at the time. And we would talk about this thing. We would talk it to death and embrace each other's differences. This was the way that Norway was supposed to heal. So what has happened since? Have we opened up the government for more people? Have the people had their say on issues in general elections? Not really. In fact, it feels as though it's gotten worse. Not just in Norway, but in the West in general. Mainstream media gives the feel that you should fear young white men more than any other group, while also disregarding their concerns like a growing suicide rate among young men and a high workplace fatality. I'm not saying that the killer, and I use that as I don't want to give the guy any more credit than he already has gotten, was justified and that his tactics were good. But growing up as a young white male in Norway, I've seen why the hatred is growing among us. Now, personally, I don't think that collectivism is any kind of solution when it comes to a problem like this. But I do think it's understandable why people seek out collectivism. When you forget the people that feel like they're at the bottom of the totem pole, they tend to be easy targets for radical views. This can also be seen among other groups of people all across the world. Collectivism is never the answer, but I can certainly understand it. The promises of more democracy seems also hollow to the touch, as most media outlets have closed down their comment sections on certain issues, and the government seems to concentrate and become more centralized than ever. It's harder for the common man to get his voice out there. It started with football articles, out of all things, and as any fan of football, not hand egg to you Americans out there, knows, we can get quite passionate about our teams. But soon you could not comment on any articles with a divisive nature to them. The problem with removing the comment sections on news sites is that where else can you go to talk about it? The forum sites. Often to the forum sites with the more radical leaning, or the threads on forum sites with more radical leaning. That's where they pick up those that don't know where else to go. These forums can be filled with people who either already agree with you or have a far more extreme views on things than you. Most importantly, you lose that person who may disagree with you but engage you in a friendly manner. You don't get your views challenged in such a forum. This is why I'm so passionate about talking to people. This is why I talk to people even I disagree with. Especially those I disagree with, really. Because in my eyes, they're the only ones that could teach me anything, or that I could get maybe to engage in some manner that will change their point of view on things. But I do so in a friendly manner, and I try to engage people in the same way that I would want to be engaged with. I have a friend who's a feminist in the classical sense, and she's a great person, but she was not aware of how bad the suicide numbers among young men in Norway was until I brought it up to her. First thing she said was that something has to be done. And that led into a general discussion on equality, and I came out of that discussion having learned a few things, and we became more understanding towards each other. Now you're probably saying, what does that have to do with the Utøya attacks? Well, if you read a little bit about the perpetrator of those attacks, what he went through in his childhood, you get a glimpse on how he was radicalized. He rarely saw his father. His mother may have abused him. He got bullied in his adolescence and sought out acceptance in different political environments and also youth gangs, but was ultimately rejected. This kind of rejection can lead to him never engaging in dialogue with anybody. And dialogue may not have saved us that day 5 years ago, but could we risk dividing up our people even more? Shouldn't we take 10 minutes out of our days to try and understand a person that says something you may not agree with? Maybe they can get you to understand why they feel that way, and maybe you can get them to understand how you feel. And I understand that the anger from different people, it's fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of returning to darker times. It's fear of losing your rights or your life. But this is a fear that exists in all of us. It shouldn't be fostered by only talking to those that agree with you. So please, the only way to beat this fear is to face it. So today, for me, please talk to someone you disagree with. Talk. Don't yell. And maybe you'll be surprised. Thank you.